go down to bare mineral soil. So the best way to get down to bare mineral soil, other than somebody taking a bulldozer and taking off the top, is for fire. That's the natural way for it to happen.
Is it lodgepole that needs fire for the seeds to open?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're maybe thinking of? Yeah.
And we'll talk about them next.
All right.
So.
And here, the bark on this is a ponderosa pine that has the vanilla-y smell.
Yeah. We could try. It usually has to have sunlight on the bark.
It smells like vanilla.
Oh.
We can try.
I have allergies 12 months a year, so I can never smell it. Anyway.
Some smell like chocolate and some smell like strawberry too.
Oh,
At least I think so.
We can kind of sniff the tree. You can know the tracks. Sniff the tree. This one smells. They aren't really. They smell stronger when sunlight's been on them. And sometimes, if you've been in a really warm ponderosa pine forest, you'll just smell that vanilla all over if the sun's been on the bark.
How you doing?
And some people have smelled chocolate ponderosa pines. I've found like 3 in my lifetime. Chocolate? Chocolate. Of course, my boss says only female. Only female people can smell chocolate. I don't know if that's true, but that's what he said. That was Dennis Coyle, my old boss. I'm gonna grab a page in here. Across here, do you see a long needle pine but a different color and a little different size of needle, a little different shape?
See a lodgepole.
Yeah. Got a bunch of them there. Something else too. So here we have ponderosa. Little guy, ponderosa. Oh, and that one is a lodgepole?
Yeah.
Look at this guy. I'll grab some dry needles again. Okay, if you look at your dichotomous key again, now we have needles in bunches of 2. Bundles of 2.
So lodgepoles are 2.
So lodgepole, if you look down, bundles of 2, lodgepole pine, and they're going to be found on page 7, I think. 4. Okay, thank you. I don't have my notes into my key. Page 4. Oh, we didn't talk about lumber species on ponderosa pine. Well, I should go back and talk about that. Ponderosa pine is one of the major lumber species of the area because it does have huge trees, no limbs, nice logs, and it's called yellow pine. And people think it's because of the bark outside, but really, if you talk to the loggers, they aren't talking about the bark outside. They're talking about the color of the wood. And the wood is yellow. So, lots of times they're talking about the color of the wood and not. But to them, they were yellow pine because that tree is going to have yellow wood. It's going to have that yellow pine wood that I want. So that was the tree that they were looking for. And they called them yellow pine. Bundles of 2, lodgepole. You can see that the cone's right here, but I can stand it on the cone too.
That's got the doll, that fungus growing on it.
Yeah.
It's like got a lot of doll.
It's got gall rust. Yeah, this right around here, it's got infested. I'll pass that around. Those are ponderosa pine, lodgepole pine cones. You notice those are open. Now, lodgepole pines have 2 types of cones. Some of them open on the tree and let out seeds. Some of them don't open. And they look like this. And these are called serotinous cones. The serotinous cones don't open, they just hold the seeds. And they hold the seeds until a certain time. And that time is when the tree burns down. But we'll talk about that in a minute. First, I wanted to talk about the cones and the needles, and then let's look at the bark. This is the thickness of bark on lodgepole. Is that going to protect that cambium layer? That's as thick as the bark is. Is that going to protect the cambium layer, you think? Anybody? It's this thin.
Yeah, too thin.
It's not going to protect it. It's going to burn. And as a species, they have, that's why they have developed the serotinous cone. The mother tree, like this one, in a fire, is going to torch and it's going to burn. But there's going to be some cones up there, and these cones don't burn really easily. They do burn, but they don't burn easily. Some of them have even been found, they're always found close to the main stem of the tree, usually. And some of ours won't have any serotinous cones anymore because they haven't had fire in their environment for so long that they have quit producing them. And they only produce the cones that let seeds out all the time. But they have found them even grown into the bark of the tree. And they will, and after a fire, basically the idea is all these trees will just totally torch and be gone. It'll just run up that bark and burn all those needles and burn the tree up. But these little cones, after the fire, after they've been heated and cooled, then they open. And if you've ever been to a lodgepole forest after fire, it just rains seeds. It's so cool. You can walk through and it's just raining these little seeds. And they're smaller than the ponderosa. I don't know if I have any seeds. They're hard to find. But they are so little. They have little wings and they just rain down. And it's a really cool. I don't have any seeds in here anymore. And they just rain down. And they're just smaller than the ponderosa pine seeds, but they have a little wing just like them. And they rain down and they plant a whole new forest and they start growing. So that's the way it's evolved with fire. That one's going to keep from burning. This one's just going to give up all the older trees and start a whole new forest. And that's what happened.
Are there any trails that are open?
I would recommend walking on the roads.
Like this one? Or?
Because they're going to have snow on them, but
Alright.
the trails are going to be extremely icy and really muddy
Alright.
where they're not icy.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah. And there won't be any cars out there, so you got the roads.
Only March.
So,
Only March not.
yeah, so, where was I? So, Yellowstone. Everybody talked about how a lot of people, I have people come in and tell me how horrible it was we let Yellowstone burn. And I'm like, hey, did you go to Yellowstone before it burned? Did you look at that forest? Lodgepole pine, they weren't even this big around.
Yeah, that was
About
it was
this
just-
far apart, and that next tree would be right here, well, where I'm standing, about this far apart, all over, nothing on the ground, just debris, needles, nothing growing underneath those trees. It was ugly. If you looked into the forest, all you saw was black trunks, and then way at the top, there was a little green tuft. It was ugly. I thought it was just ugly. And it burnt and took that all out, and now I went back 4 years after the fire. Little trees all over, little trees like this. Now the little trees are way over my head. And that was in '89, so yeah, they're way over my head. They look good. The only thing they need is they need to be thin, but other than that, or a little fire in there to burn out a few of them, because they're too close together again.
They're all even age.
They're all even
So
age.
in another 85 years,
Yeah,
They'll burn again.
yeah.
you'll have another
That's what they're
standard
supposed
plate
to do.
in fire, and that's just what nature wants to do.
And that's what nature meant to do. That's how lodgepole evolved. So these big lodgepole stands, the only problem is that we have with it is, okay, our timetable isn't the same as nature's, and we don't like to look at black trees or just little tiny trees. We want to see big trees. And we have to think about that. It's just because nature has its cycle doesn't mean that we should interfere with it. And when we did suppress fires for 100 years, we let those stands get so thick and stuff like that. If they would have had tiny little lightning strikes here or there, and then you let them burn for an acre, and then the rain coming down, and you'd open up an acre, it would look a lot nicer. And you wouldn't have these big as many of these big stand replacing fires. They might have little controls here and there. So bringing back fire into nature is really important, and control burning and stuff like that. People don't usually understand that quite, but it's really important to the habitat to get rid of all this litter underneath and have a nice forest, and it makes a difference. So, talk about lodge. Again, if you notice, there's a big lodgepole over there.
It's really nice.
Yeah, and all his bottom branches are dying, and people go, "Oh, it's dying." No, the tree's not dying. It's called self-pruning. They aren't being useful to him, so he's getting rid of them. And the only thing that will break them off is a windstorm or too much snow, heavy snowstorm. I'll break all those branches off, like the one I just picked over here. Break off. And they will, a big lodgepole like that, that's a pretty big lodgepole. They will self-prune, just like the ponderosas do, because they're pines. That's what they do.
What's the
then
disease?
that kind of protects them from a ground fire, a little bit. But, huh?
What's the disease that's going through the lodgepole, through this community? In general? You see big batches of lodgepole dying off.
I think it's the either the western or the mountain pine bark beetle right now. But then the gall rust is horrible in here. We have gall rust like crazy. This is a disease called gall rust. When it's at the end of a branch like this, basically it's just going to kill the branch from then on. But before it kills it, it'll send out. See the cone on it, and there's another cone starting right here. There's a first year cone there. Second year cone, first year cone. It's going to send out as many cones as it possibly can. If you look at this tree, it's got tons of cones on it. It's because it is affected with gall rust. If the gall rust gets into the trunk of the tree, it'll put a big canker in it, and when it finally blocks off the cambium layer, the tree will die. But until that time, it'll keep fighting it. And it's called a rust because right now these aren't rusting, but in a couple weeks or a month, they'll get a reddish rusty powder on them, and that's its spore, and it's going to send it off to another
Yeah,
tree.
it's too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really bright. Well, you've probably already seen it.
It's really
but
rusty red.
It is. It's
It looks
bright
like
and
rust, just like a rust on iron. And yeah, so these are the ones that are around Redfish Lake and stuff that are getting attacked by the beetles really, really bad. You have to think, Mother Nature's going to replace her stands when she wants, and if you don't let them burn, then insects will kill them. So you have your choices. Mother Nature has a way of thinning trees if we don't do it.
So is the lodgepole the one they make a lot of the fences out of?
Lodgepole they use for post and pole timber. They like them because they're straight. They were named lodgepole after the fact that those dog-eared stands like in Yellowstone where they were really close together, and most of them were smaller than this in diameter. Like that little guy down there. Second tree down, and even smaller. When they were about that diameter, they made great teepee poles because they're straight, and they don't have any branches on them, and so it made great teepee poles. Yeah, so they use them for teepee poles.
Are those like the one out toward Bergdorf, the ones that everybody uses for poles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here it's a mixed stand, but up there it's a pure stand. Lodgepole, almost a pure stand. you're getting into a true lodgepole stand, a true lodgepole habitat. This is mixed down here, so that's why we get some of these bigger trees because they're competing with the other big trees, but there aren't as many of them. Scientific names always crack me up because ponderosa is Pinus ponderosa, which is really easy. Pinus being species, genus and species being ponderosa. Lodgepole is Pinus, pine, contorta. Okay, contorta does not mean straight lodgepole. But what they're talking about, if you go up to some of these high mountain lakes, and you will see ponderosas that are U-shaped, and if you sit on, they'll come down and they'll go like this, and you can sit on them, and they're all twisted and mangled. That's where they got their name. They looked at those trees and named the species. So that was kind of funny because everybody else calls them lodgepole because they're straight, and then their scientific name is contortus because they're contorted. So yeah, that's kind of funny. But that's what they're talking about, and they do that because of heavy snow loads, and it knocks those trees down and bends them, and they get all those weird shapes. So. Okay, so let's go on to our next trees. Any other questions or comments?